Welcome back. President Obama calls for a new tax on oil, $10 for every barrel of crude. The White House wants to put pressure on energy companies so they will move away from fossil fuels. The administration hopes the tax will raise an additional $20 billion in revenue annually. That money will go towards funding the nation's aging transportation infrastructure. They say it would also help pay for the research and development of self-driving cars and low-carbon technologies. Right now, oil prices continue to hover around $30 a barrel. That's their lowest point in a decade. The president answered today why he thinks now is a time for such a fee.
It's right to do it now when gas prices are really low, and they will be low for quite some time to come, so it's not going to be a disruptive factor in terms of the economy.
Republican lawmakers and oil producers criticize that idea. However, the Independent Petroleum Association of America says at a time when oil companies are going through the largest financial crisis in over 25 years, it makes little sense to raise costs on the industry. House Majority Whip Steve Scalise tweeted Obama's worst idea yet. And House Speaker Paul Ryan called it dead on arrival. Once again, the president expects hardworking consumers to pay for his out-of-touch climate agenda. A $10 tax for every barrel of oil produced would raise energy prices, hurting poor Americans the most.
All right, thanks a lot, Miranda. Let's bring in our guest now. First, founder and president of Americans for Tax Reform, Grover Norquist, also joining us, the editor of the Schork Report and commodities expert, Stephen Schork. Gentlemen, good to have you with us.
Great to be here. Thank you.
All right, Grover, first, try to, if you can, play devil's advocate and help me make some sense of the president's logic on this, because I just don't get it.
He's not running for re-election. It's a freebie. He's just having fun. Everybody knows it's a joke, so how do you get worked up and get mad at him? What is annoying is that he ran for office twice, promising to never raise taxes on anyone who earned less than $250,000 a year. That was his pledge. Now, Obamacare had 8 taxes that hit the middle class. This is a tax that hits directly middle-income Americans, and it really puts the lie to his entire campaign and his promise not to gouge middle-income Americans.
All right, even though, Stephen, we heard that this is dead on arrival, not going to go anywhere with Congress, it can't be the news that the oil industry wants to hear, considering the dire financial straits they find themselves in these days. What would this do? Let's just say if it did go in place, what would it do to an already struggling oil industry right now?
Well, let's be clear on this. It's not just the struggling oil industry. We have to ask ourselves, why is the U.S. oil industry struggling? And this is because the U.S. economy, along with the global economy, is struggling. Hence why you haven't only received a plunge in oil prices, but you've seen a plunge in every single industrial commodity out there. That only happens because something globally, on an economic standpoint, is wrong. So now to introduce a $10 barrel tax, which, by the way, to the consumer, that's going to translate into at least 20, if not 25 cent a gallon tax on top of the 45-cent taxes Americans already pay on a per gallon base. It would essentially be the death knell for the U.S. economy, the global economy, and certainly the industry itself. It is an extremely idiotic idea.
Well, Grover, Stephen just mentioned the gas tax, but you still have some people, including I think it was Bob Corker of Tennessee, talking about the need to get that tied to inflation. It hasn't come up in quite some time, and that this money, as the president said, from this tax could go to pay for things like infrastructure. We need roads and bridges, right? What is a better way to pay for it?
Well, as the president made clear, none of this will go to roads and bridges. This is money. Politicians always tell you that they want to raise taxes for fill in the blank, whatever it is you're interested in. But then what do? This is all about putting money into so-called high-speed rail and light rail, things that nobody uses. It's not going to do one pothole. It's not going to widen any road, and it's not going to reduce congestion. As a matter of fact, it's going to build subways and high-speed rail, which is going to chew up the time and effort and the lines that you need, the space that you need for driving cars. This will slow traffic and build a bunch of stuff nobody wants or uses. Every penny he's bagged is going away from cars and away from the effort to expand the infrastructure for highways and roads. That's not what he's going to spend this on?
Yeah, and everybody knows those cars that we just showed aren't going to go anywhere. They're not just going to magically disappear. We're going to have cars on the roads for a long time. Stephen, last word to you, about 30 seconds left. Do you believe, like Grover says, that the president's just trying to have a little fun with some of his adversaries?
I would imagine so to this point. It's a lame duck presidency at this point. He's trying to score a little brownie points for the Birkenstock wing of his party. So he's just throwing them a shout out right now. So I absolutely agree with Grover. This is just an impossible idea. It'll never get passed. So yes, it is just a bad joke at a bad time in the U.S. economy.
Well, Bernie Sanders got his own ice cream flavor. Maybe President Obama wants to get his own ice cream flavor too with this. I don't know. We'll have a contest. We can name it next time. Grover, Stephen, thanks so much for being with us, gentlemen. We'll have you back soon.
Excellent. Thank you.
All right, we keep talking about it. So are a lot of you. We got our preview of the Donald Trump interview with our very own Steve Malzberg coming up. Got a lot of great information out of Mr. Trump today, and we'll bring you up to speed with Steve in just a few moments. Also later in this show, Ted Cruz talks about his sister's struggle with drugs, how it could help him in New Hampshire.